What is up everyone, it's me Zahib, and today I'm going to be doing my very first album review. So this is going to be the first album review in a series of album reviews where I review albums that I've listened to, go over what I think about them, do I think they were good, do I think they were bad, and then at the end I give my rating out of 10 for that album. So today I'm going to be doing my very first album review. And the album that I'm going to be reviewing today is This It by The Strokes. For those of you who don't know, Is This It is the debut album by the indie rock band The Strokes, and it was released in 2001. And this album was insanely popular when it was first released. So this is a quintessential garage rock album, and that's part of the reason why it was so popular. It sort of started the rock revival of the 2000s, and that's why it became such a big hit. In fact, a lot of bands today got their inspiration from this album, so it was a really massive milestone, a really massive inspiration for a lot of different bands. So today we're going to be finding out what I think of the album. Do I love it? Do I hate it? We'll find out in the rest of the review. So, right off the bat, I love this album. I really like it. It is a great album. It's one of the best debut albums of all time. I think it's an amazing album, a really good album, and I definitely do see the hype. While I do think it's a little bit overrated, for the most part, I do think it's a very solid album. What's really good, usually what I do with these album reviews is I sort of give my general thoughts on the album, and then I go through each track, and then do an analysis and review of each track, and then at the end give sort of my final verdict on the entire album. So that's what I'm going to do with this album. So generally I do like this album a lot. I love how it's very garage rocky. The production quality is really raw, really lo-fi, and it really adds to that raw garage rock sound, and it makes the album sound really homely, really comfy, and it's a really warm album to listen to. It's really comfy to listen to. It is just a really comfy album to listen to, and I really enjoy that. As well as that, the album is really, really energetic. Like it never lets up. It's filled with multiple catchy and memorable guitar riffs and hooks. There's so many riffs and hooks, and they're all so catchy and memorable. Every song is catchy and memorable. It is one of the most consistently good albums I've ever heard in a long time. Now I'm going to go over each track and tell you what I thought of each track individually. So the title track the first track on the album is the title track, Is This It? And I really like it. I think it's a good song. What's really interesting about the song is it's short but sweet. It doesn't overstay its welcome. It's really short. In fact, if I recall, it's the shortest song on the album. So I think that really does play a part in making it seem like a much more, it doesn't overstay its welcome. It doesn't drag on. It's short and sweet, and it ends in a good way. And that's one thing I really admire about the song. It's definitely a really good song. I really like Is This It? I think it's a really good album opener. It's very mellow. It's very soft, which is a bit weird considering most of the album is very upbeat and energetic. So having the opening track be more mellow and somber it's weird, but I like it. I think it's decent. The next track on the album is The Modern Age, and this, honestly, if I'm going to be honest, I think this should have been the album opener, not Is This It? Because I feel like this song really encapsulates the sound of this album perfectly. It's energetic, it's incredibly catchy, it's got some amazing guitar riffs and hooks. It's one of the Strokes' best songs, and I think it's one of the best songs on the album. No, I mean, I think it's one of the best songs on the album, and I think it's one of the best songs the Strokes have ever put out. It's really good. Like I said, it's really catchy. It's incredibly memorable, and oh my god, the solo. It has one of the best solos in any Strokes song ever. The next track is Soma, and it's more of a cool down from The Modern Age, which is like a really good song. Soma isn't as good. I still like Soma quite a bit. It's very, like Is This It? It's short but sweet. It doesn't overstay its welcome. I think it's the second shortest song on the album, so that means that it's enjoyable to listen to. It doesn't overstay. It doesn't drag. It's not one. I wouldn't say it's one of my favorite tracks on the album. It does have one of my favorite parts in any Strokes song though, which is the outro to the song, where he says, "Tried it once and I liked it." That part is so good. Overall, it's a good song. I like it. The next song is Barely Legal. This I actually didn't like the song that much at first. When I first heard it, I thought it was not terrible, but it was probably my least favorite song on the album. After listening to it for longer though, I think it's one of the best songs on the album. I think it's incredibly catchy, incredibly memorable. I mean, who can forget that? The verses in the song are just so catchy. I mean, who can forget? I didn't take no shortcuts. Like it's so iconic and memorable and catchy. I think the only part of the song I don't really like much is probably the chorus. It's a bit repetitive, but aside from that, I really do like the song a lot. It's one of the best songs on the album for sure. The next song is Someday, and this is actually the opposite of Barely Legal, because with Barely Legal, I didn't like that song much at first, but then it grew on me. Someday is the opposite. I loved it a lot when I first listened to it. I thought it was amazing. I thought it was one of the Strokes' best songs. For a long time, this was actually my favourite song on the album, Someday. I absolutely loved it. But I think after a while, it's definitely sort of cooled down on me quite a bit. I think I've gotten a little bit sick of it. I do think it's an amazing song though. The chorus in the song is absolutely beautiful. One of the best choruses in any Strokes song ever. It's just such a beautiful, melancholic, bittersweet song. I love Someday. It's a really good song. The next song is Alone Together, which is by far the most underrated song on the album. Many people would consider it to be the worst song on the album, but I honestly disagree. I think it's one of the best songs. I think when I first listened to it, I thought it was one of the weaker ones, but after listening to it more, I do really enjoy it. I think it's a really great song. It's got some really nice riffs, it's catchy, and the solo at the end is honestly amazing. Like, that guitar solo is one of the best guitar solos in any Strokes song. It is just a really good song in my opinion. It's really solid. The next song on the album is Last Night. This is the most famous song on the album, and it's actually, I think it's the most streamed song by the Strokes on Spotify. So that's interesting. I like Last Night. I think it's a decent track. It's probably, if I had to choose one, I'd say this is probably my least favourite track on the album, which isn't saying a lot because this album is filled with a lot of great tracks, but compared to the rest of the album, I do feel like this one lacks a little bit. It lacks a little bit of that wow factor that some of the other songs have. I do really enjoy it though. It's a nice song, it's pretty laid back, it's pretty chill. It's a good song, and it's just iconic. Everyone knows Last Night. Literally, even it's one of the first. Usually, for most Strokes fans, it's one of the first songs they hear by the Strokes. Last Night, so it is a really iconic, famous song. While it's probably my least favorite song on the album, I do enjoy it quite a bit. The next song is Hard to Explain. This is easily, in my opinion, the best song on the album. This song is it's one of my favorite Strokes songs of all time. It's beautiful. The guitar riff that plays throughout most of the song, it's so catchy, it's so memorable, it's so beautiful, melancholic, and just bittersweet. It's such a great song. And I love the drums. This song is ultimate Strokes. This is one of the most perfect Strokes songs ever, in my opinion. I absolutely love everything about the song. I don't think the song is perfect. I don't think it can be changed in any way. If you haven't listened to it yet, if you want to listen to one song on the album, I recommend Hard to Explain. It's easily my favourite track on the album. It's honestly just amazing. You have to hear it for yourself. I loved it when I first heard it. I love it now. It's just such a good song. The next song is New York City Cops, and this is where it gets a bit weird because the US version of this album differs from the UK version in that for the US version they have When It Started as the ninth track, whereas in the UK we have New York City Cops. But since I live in the UK, I'm going to give a review of the UK version of this album, so I'm going to be talking about New York City Cops. I quite like New York City Cops. I think it's a good track. It's very catchy, very memorable. I mean, all the songs in this album are catchy and memorable. I don't think there's really a single bad song on this album. Every song is either great or excellent. I will say New York City Cops is probably one of the weaker tracks on the album, but that's really only because the chorus is a little bit repetitive, but I think aside from that, I do really like the song. It has some of the best guitar work in any Strokes song. The solo is great. I love the riffs in the song. It's really raw for some reason. I don't know why, but whenever I listen to the song, it sounds really raw. Like, it sounds older than some of the other songs on the album. And to be honest, I don't think it's for the better, and I think that's one of the main reasons why it's probably one of the weaker tracks on the album. But I do really enjoy it. I quite like New York City Cops. I just think it's a little bit too raw, and the chorus is a little bit repetitive. But overall, it's a good song. The next track is Trying Your Luck. This song again also grew on me quite a bit. When I first heard it, it was my least favorite track on the album. But I think I've definitely gained a newfound appreciation for the song the more I listen to it. It's a nice song. It's very much like Is This It? Much like the title track, it's a more slow and somber song. It's more mellow, it's more toned down, whereas the rest of the album's more upbeat and in your face. This song's more toned down, it's more mellow, it's more quiet. And I like it. I think it's a very melancholic song. It's very bittersweet. It's sad. It's a sad song, and I like it quite a bit. I think it's a good song. Well, I wouldn't say it's one of my favourite songs on the album. I do quite like it. I think it's good. The next song is Take It or Leave It, which is, in my opinion, one of the best album closers in any Strokes song, or in any song ever, in any album ever. This is one of the best album closers. It's so... From the moment the riff hits in, you're like, when I first heard the song and I heard that riff, I was like, I know this is going to be a good song. And it was. This song is the climax of the entire album. This song is the climax of the entire album. It's so energetic, it's so catchy. It's really catchy, and I just feel like Julian has so much control over the song. Like, you can hear it. In this song, Julian has so much control over it, and I think it's a really good song. It's a really great way to finish off the album. Definitely one of my favourite songs on the album. A really enjoyable song, in my opinion. And overall, this is a really good album. It's got a lot of amazing songs. I really like most of this album. I don't think there's a single bad song. It's one of the most consistent albums of all time. It's just really good. It's just the most solid album, to the point where you won't even notice how solid it is when you're listening to it, but it just is such a really solid, consistent and cohesive album. The album's basically perfect, so I can't really think of a flaw. I guess my only real flaw with this album would be that sometimes it can be a little bit difficult to listen to, because the album's really raw, really lo-fi. It's a little bit tingy sometimes. It's hard to explain. Ha ha ha, that was a Strokes pun right there. Get it? Because hard to explain. Because that's a song on the album. Get it? But all jokes aside, it can be a little bit tingy to listen to sometimes, because of the fact that it's really raw sounding. But I think aside from that, minor complaint. Also, sometimes it can be a little bit repetitive. The album doesn't really explore a lot of ideas musically and lyrically. A lot of the songs sound kind of the same, which does benefit the album because it sounds good and all the songs sound good. But sometimes the album can get a little bit stagnant, I think, and that's really one of my only real flaws with the album. Aside from those, honestly, not even flaws, mostly just nitpicks. Aside from those nitpicks, I think that this is a really great album, really solid, really cohesive, and I recommend anyone who wants to get into the Strokes, listen to this album first. It's probably the most accessible album, and for new listeners, so I highly recommend listening to this album first. Overall, I would rate this album an 8.9 out of 10, in my opinion. So let me know what you thought of my review in the comments below, and let me know what your rating would be, as well as what your favourite songs are and what your least favourite songs are on the album, as well as your general thoughts on the album as well. So leave that in the comments below. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, and also check out my friend Nudsy123 and follow his YouTube channel as well. I'll put the link to his channel in the description below. He often does Let's Plays and comedy sketches and reaction videos. They're all really good, so I highly recommend checking out his channel. But yeah, remember to like, comment and subscribe, and stay tuned for more album reviews in the future. I might review the rest of the Strokes discography. I might do other bands. Well, I will do other bands' discography, obviously. But yeah, stay tuned for more album reviews.